This episode of Merely a Setback is brought to you by a broken pencil. A broken pencil. Never mind, it's pointless.
It's time to get your battle text scrolling and that trade chat trolling, and buckle up for the podcast about storytelling in the world of Warcraft. This is Merely a Setback.
Greetings, fellow lore walkers, and welcome to another episode of Merely a Setback. It is our 100th episode this week. My name is Sharku, and I am joining you live from my podcasting perch high in the mountains of North Carolina, where it is 9:29 p.m. Eastern Time on July the 29th, 2020. And man, I'm so excited you guys are here. We have an awesome show for you this week, and we're going to jump right into some discussion about the new Warcraft novel, Rising Shadows, in just a moment. First, Shadows Rising. What did I say?
It's a Rising Shadow.
No, I didn't. That's not the name of the book. I knew it was Shadows Rising. Rising Shadows. It's not written. Jared, you didn't write it in the intro. Look, you just screwed up our intro for our 100th show. God. Well, go. Here's Jared.
Next 100.
Jared, say hi.
Hey, Sharku.
Okay, so there's Jared. Shoe Boots is also here from Canada. Not quite screwing anything up, but disagreeing with me on everything.
Hey, I'll tell you what we can be in total agreement with.
What's that?
I have 4,907,000 gold on my main. I will probably have Longboy by the next time I talk to you, and if I don't, it'll be the time after that. I'm so close, and you guys, I'm so sick of farming gold. It has been so terrible.
It's going to be so bad for you when you spend it all, and you're never going to have gold again.
Everyone keeps telling me that, but I got to tell you, I went for 15 years never having any gold in this game.
You got a point.
I think I'll just be fine with it. I'll buy the Longboy, and then I'll be like, okay.
You got a point. I'm playing Classic right now. They're like, you never have gold. I'm like, yeah, this is about as much gold I have in retail too, so we're good. Let me come back to you, okay?
Oh, okay.
Because before we get to your ridiculous pun that I know is going to come, is making its way towards the airwaves, I want to introduce once again Madeleine Roux, the author of Rising Shadows, Shadows, who is here joining us for this very, very special 100th episode of Merely a Setback. Thank you so much for coming back and hanging out with us while we completely dissect your book in front of your eyes.
Sure. Ready for it. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Happy 100th.
Oh, thank you.
What an anniversary.
Thank you so much. I know. We're so excited. It only took us 3 years to get to 2 years worth of episodes. So tell me real quick before I bump back to the other guys real quick, how has the past 2 weeks been in the life of Madeleine Roux as far as the book coming out? And I'm sure I've seen you on pretty much everything. You did an interview with Jocelyn Moffat before you came back on the show with us, and I was jealous because she's one of our favorite people. She was on the show as well a while back. But how's it been? How's the experience?
It's been crazy, really fun, really cool. It was really, obviously the day of was super exciting, and just all the, takes rolling in, and everyone was super excited, and I was excited, and I was crying a lot, and it was intense. And it's still kind of an ongoing thing because there's been a bunch of issues with like international releases. So I'm, trying to stay on that, and I don't know what's going on. So I'm like just as anxious and frustrated as everybody else, because obviously I want everyone to have the book. So it's kind of starting to quiet down now. I think I have like this and maybe one more podcast next week, and then it sort of like peters out. So it's been intense. That week right before and right after was very intense. So
yeah, I bet we got some tweets from folks at least in Australia that haven't gotten the book yet, and just want to go ahead and put out there, if you haven't been able to get the book yet in your country, or for whatever reason you haven't finished it, maybe you'd had it but you haven't had time to finish it, feel free to send the show discussion questions. I can't guarantee you we can run everything by Madeleine, but I will do my best to make sure that we at least have a chance to talk about them on the show. So if you have anything, if you're listening in the future after we've recorded this episode, feel free to shoot us an email or something.
Or check out some of the other podcasts I've been on lately.
Yeah.
It might have gotten answered there because I've done all the ones that have been out in the last week or so are all like post book. Everyone's read it, so we go into like details and spoilers and stuff like that. So
yeah, it's gonna be I'm sure you haven't been busy the past few weeks.
Oh, I'm also on a deadline for a different book, so I'm turning in a book this week,
great.
and then immediately turning around to edit another book, and so yeah, it's a bit hectic right now, you could say.
It's just raking it in. You're gonna retire.
I don't know.
I
don't know if it's that. I mean, it's a lot of work for very little return sometimes, but that's the job.
I can't imagine. All right, Shoe Boots, how you doing, man?
I'm okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You understand why I had to. I didn't want you to go through that big long thing.
We've got a big deal guest here who is a holder of lore secrets.
It's episode 100. We already screwed up the intro because Jared didn't write down the name of the novel.
Well, you know what, Sharku? I don't really have. I haven't been doing much in game other than farming gold, so I don't really have much of a story. I mean, like the only thing I've really been up to is I've been leveling a shaman.
Okay.
And and I can't decide what I like better, elemental or enhancement. And I've had a lot of people telling me like, no, you should go enhancement. Other people being like, well, no, you should go elemental. But you know what? I think I can go either way. I think I'd identify as bihexual.
I don't know if I'm offended by that one or not, but I appreciate it. I'm there.
Well, I'm proud of who I am. So I
you are. That's fine. I'm not. I like it. Bihexual. Okay, cool. That's a good one. It was short and sweet again.
Well, I tried to keep it short because we got a Madeleine Roux on the show.
Got a lot to talk about.
We do. We have a ton of stuff, and we need to. I'm just going to go into it. Just going to go right into it. Real quick announcements. First of all, our next book club reading is going to be a short story called Gin Greymane, Lord of His Pack by James Wall. You can find that on the Warcraft website or just Google Gin Greymane, Lord of His Pack. We're going through all of the short stories that World of Warcraft has put out that are sort of supplemental lore to the game, and we've been trying to go through all of them, and we are up to Gin's story, so check that out, have it read, and in the nearest future, maybe, there's been a lot of stuff going on in the past few month or so we have had to put that on the back burner, but have it read, be ready for it. We're going to do that as part of our book club series in the near future. So yeah, check that book out. Have either of you guys read it yet? I mean,
yes.
We should have. Jared did.
The upcoming short story?
Yeah.
No.
I've had quite a bit. I've had some other reading to do. Yeah. So, but Jared, did you enjoy it?
Slightly more important reading to do, but yes, I think it is a very good short story, and I personally can't wait to talk about it.
There you go. You got the personal endorsement from J-Rod there. So check that story out. I always, this is one of my favorite segments that we do is the book club. So check that out. Be ready for the discussion, and we're going to jump into that. In other announcements, I have a retraction. I have some. There was some developing news that I'm about 15 years late on. Last week, apparently, Shoe Boots and I got into a big discussion about covenants. If you guys haven't checked that episode out, it's 2 hours of us screaming at each other. It was beautiful. We're not really screaming, and we both very much love each other still. So
it was a good debate.
It was a great debate. And I think we both ended on good notes there. In either case, I said that never before has Blizzard gated certain class abilities behind a permanent choice before, right? Like outside of talents, you'd have to respec your talents and stuff like that in the older games. But as far as class abilities go, they never gated it behind a permanent choice like a faction or a race. I was wrong. Apparently, priests back in vanilla had a different in-game spell, like level 58 something spell, based on their race. Devouring Plague was the big hotness for the Horde side, and what was it?
Undead.
On the undead, and then the dwarves had another good one on the
Fear
Alliance
Ward.
side, the Fear Ward.
Yep.
Anyway, so I apologize. I was incorrect. I hope nobody broke their iPhones, slamming them against the wall while I was making that point. And I want to also point out that Shoe Boots didn't know that either. So
No.
That's why I rolled a dwarf priest in classic. Actually.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that Fear Ward, man. So yeah, I just wanted to go on record saying I was wrong. It doesn't necessarily change my opinion, but
I too should go on record that I retract nothing. And I was right about everything I said.
But yeah, for any of you that have injured your foot by kicking a door or something, I apologize. And you can send your medical bills to Jared.
Oh, excuse me. No,
What? You're the intern.
please don't do that.
That's isn't part of your job accounting and stuff?
No.
Like you got to
No,
figure.
Absolutely
All
not.
right.
No, that's above my pay grade.
I want to know how many people start sending medical bills to Jared.
Don't.
Let's meme this out, fam. Let's meme it out. All right. That's it for the announcements. You guys don't have anything real quick. We'll share all your individual stuff, but there's nothing I'm forgetting. We'll do all that at the end of the show.
Yeah, later.
Good.
Let's talk about the book.
Let's talk about the book. And before we do, big spoiler warning. We always do a spoiler warning at the beginning of the show. If you guys have been listening over the past few weeks, we've been promising that we weren't going to spoil the book until we had this discussion episode. And it has now arrived. So if you are listening to the podcast right now and you have not finished the novel, stop listening to the podcast would be my advice. Go ahead and put a check mark by it, star it, reminder, favorite, and finish the book, and then go back and finish the podcast, because there are no holds barred. Everything in the novel can and might be revealed on the show today. If you're listening live and you haven't finished the book, please just wait for the podcast to come out and then finish it. But just real big warning. There's nothing. We're spoiling everything. Everything is on the page. So if you haven't read it yet, stop listening. Come back later. Cool. Zinashari in the chat says they've heard the book several times, so that's good. That's good. We're going to talk about the audiobook too a little bit. At least I want to once we get there. But yeah, that's it. So analysis. Where do you guys want to start? Do we want to start with the analysis, or do we want to start with questions?
I think we should start with Apari and everything about her and where she comes from and why she's awesome.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I did have one question. I don't think Madeleine might not know the answer to this, but I wanted to know why Talanji in the audiobook kept calling it a Makgora instead of a Makara.
I don't know. I wasn't in the booth. I don't direct books. So
that's the director question.
No control.
All right, I'm gonna get him. I for the record, I loved the voice acting in the novel. In the audiobook, I thought it was fantastic. I cannot remember the actress's name right now. Somebody help me. Yes, who plays Talanji in game, does an extraordinary job. And I have a Master of Fine Arts terminal degree in acting, and so that is an expert opinion. Just to make sure.
Yeah, that's probably just a quirk of the not getting direction in the booth or something. Like when I have my other audiobooks recorded, they'll send me a list of questions of like, how do you say this? How do you say that? And so I have to send them like phonetic things back. But
oh yeah,
I mean, so it just must have been like they didn't question it, or she didn't know. So
I'm wondering.
Yeah,
she's British. Yes.
Yeah, she's British. Yeah.
I'm wondering if it's not just an accent thing. maybe that word, even though it's a made up word, is pronounced differently.
It could be. They might have just like not flagged it for her. You know what I mean? Like they might have assumed she knows how to say it from being in game, but her character never says it. So
yeah. I will say it was consistent. She didn't flip between Matgora and Matgora,
where they'll say a character's name that's like, whoa, that's not how I would say that, but like, you know, it is what it is. Yeah.
You do you.
Yeah.
God, it reminds me. Growing up, I was a big Mortal Kombat fan, and there's a character named Shang Tsung, and I would always call him Tsang Tsungi. Like that was my name in headcanon when I was 8 years old. Tsang Tsung. Anyway, that's enough of that. That was just a little fun thing. I was picking on every time I heard her say Matgora. I was like, I think it's Matgora, but okay. She's British. She's British.
I've heard it both ways, honestly. Like,
I think I have too. Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay.
Maybe different Orcish clans pronounce it differently.
Maybe. Yeah. The European orcs pronounce it Matgora.
Yeah, that's a Burning Blade accent for sure.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. All right, cool. But let's get into some real meat and potatoes. Apari. That was one of the first questions that we wanted to talk about. My question for you, Madeleine, is last time you were on the show, you talked about how this was a real collaborative effort between you, the story team, other parts of Blizzard to kind of create the novel. How much creative power did you have over Apari, and where did she come from? And because she was a really interesting, I mean, I would consider her the antagonist for this novel. Very interesting character. We haven't heard of her before. She was developed in the novel. Tell us a little bit about where she came from and what your, I guess, what your creative process was for the choices that you made for her along the way.
Sure. Which came from my brain. So,
that's a Madeleine Roux original.
Yeah, it was sort of, again, collaborative. I knew in the outline that the Zandalari rebels were going to be a big part of the book, and it just seemed obvious that they would need some kind of leadership. And so, I wanted to sort of create a mirror of, we have kind of Nathanos and Cira with him in the more strong leadership position and her sort of his backup. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to have that on the other side as well of, this sort of, they stand sometimes in opposition to him. So it felt right to have a leader and then sort of a lieutenant. And there's a lot of guys in the book, so I thought it would be correct, to maybe have a little more female representation, especially because as I was developing her, I realized, this is a great opportunity to sort of color in Talanji's backstory, and having her be sort of her palace playmate seemed really great, because then we could learn more about Talanji's childhood, learn more about what it's like to grow up as the princess of the Zandalari. So it was a process that kind of developed as I was working through the book and thinking, okay, I want her to fit in. I've had people ask, is she from the game? And I'm like, that's what I want. I want you to question it. Wait a minute, was she part of that whole coup subplot? Did I just miss her? Is she is she some kind of part of this? But
I had to look it up myself. I feel like I know a little bit about the lore of the game. I'm like, did we see her? I feel like I've seen her.
That's great. That's exactly how I wanted it. Yeah, no, I just wanted to create, someone who felt like they really fit into the Zandalari lore, someone who is, complex, not just a villain to be a villain. She has some complexity to her and a bit of a softer side that's way down in there. And yeah, you're just looking for sort of every character is sort of a mechanism, a little cog in the larger machine of the book. And for me, I thought it was a great opportunity to sort of mirror back to Talanji, what it means to sort of be consumed by revenge, because that's a huge part of Talanji's story in this book. So to kind of take that to an even more extreme degree and show how it can just be the function of basically a misunderstanding or a mistake or a split-second decision, and to sort of have her see oh my gosh, this person I thought was my best friend, this person I spent my whole childhood with, she's become this other thing now because she's allowed revenge to just completely consume her. And, there's the physical aspect of her wound that never heals. That's obviously a symbol of all that stuff going on. So, I don't know. It just sort of developed. I wanted to keep her creepy and but still kind of like alluring in a way where you're like, yeah, but she's kind of cool. I just wanted to keep her, I don't know, like just someone who kind of belongs in the Warcraft universe. I gave her a little tick sidekick because to me that's, I don't know, I feel like the battle pets are not utilized enough in the fiction. So I wanted to give her a spooky little sidekick and, yeah, I don't know. It was a process, obviously, and her backstory changed a lot. Like in the initial draft, it was a little different. She was kind of fit into the palace and that whole life a little differently, and then we had to tweak that to kind of make it like just feel more natural and feel like her backstory was like kind of slotted in nicely. So, yeah, it was just like a whole process to really make sure that she felt like good and like a holistic character. And and we could kind of make her pretty like powerful and cool because I knew she was going to die. So it's like there's no like, well, where is she going to fit into the larger lore of the world? It doesn't matter because she's gone. So
yeah,
you can kind of take a big swing because she's out of here. So
yeah, I was actually thinking, Madeleine. I was reading because I finished the book. I don't know, 2 or 3 days ago, and so I already knew we were going to have you on the show when I was reading the part where she died, and so I was wondering about like the decision that goes into. So, there's this really amazing scene where Teo basically, does the deed essentially, and
cut the throat. Yeah,
yeah. But you made a decision to kind of just put a break in the text, right? Like you didn't actually graphically describe her killing, which I thought was great, but it got me thinking, like, you probably went through a few different ideas in your head about whether or not you wanted to just vividly describe everything that happened, and then you made that choice. Like, what went into that choice? Did Blizzard tell you not to be graphic about it or anything like that?
Oh no, I think they would have let me do whatever. But it just felt right to me because by that point she kind of reaches a moment of like, she's like pitiable in that moment. She's not a threat. She's weakened. She doesn't have any more power. She's kind of seen that her plan is failing. She doesn't have anything left. And so to give her like a really like violent, gruesome send-off just doesn't feel correct to me. That just feels like gratuitous and not really what she deserves in that moment. But also, like, I have this really huge boner for this book, Vanity Fair by Thackeray. It's a classic, but there's like a main character who dies in like a single sentence in that book. And it is to me one of the most metal things. Like to this day, I think about it constantly as one of the like he's a major character. And then halfway through the book, it's just like, yeah. And then he died in a field face down in the mud or something. Like, it's just like super brutal like that. And to me, like sometimes that's more effective than like, they took the knife and they drew it across, like, I think there's like something a little more magical that happens if you can do it in a simple way and what happens, right? Like we all know that's what happens, but to me it just like sometimes it works better to do less and let it be kind of a more off screen kind of thing. So
yeah, that's awesome. I was going to say, Jared, did you have anything as well about this or anything else before we move on? Because my dog is
the only
thing
thing
he wants to say hi.
Thinking about
I think Mom
thinking about Talanji and Apari, that the whole siege like flashback scene where Talanji's like running through and she finds her childhood friend, bleeding out, crushed under some rock, and she like has to make a split second decision, like that. I feel like that was a good kind of send off for the characters, because like at that point, like it kind of for me foreshadowed like, yeah, this character is definitely gonna die, because like she's done awful, horrible things, and you see that obviously Talanji is gonna make it out of this, and just from that, I really appreciated that scene of like there's this question of whether or not or not whether or not, but like why Apari has betrayed Talanji, and we see that explicitly, like that split-second decision to go be with her dad instead of save Apari. That really stuck with me.
Thank you. I thought it was a cool opportunity too to sort of give the sense of like what's going on while you're not, like, what you can't see that's happening during the siege, right? I like the sense of like, oh, there's always things going on around you in those moments that you don't know is happening. I like it because it kind of makes the world feel more alive, right? Like, just because that character's not on screen in that moment doesn't mean something meaningful isn't happening to them on like the other side of the wall, right? So that was a cool idea to sort of like color in other parts of what's going on in that encounter.
I actually really appreciate, like, I play Alliance, so Battle of Dazar'alor is a raid that we did, and I mean,
one of my favorite raids. It's
me too.
Cool.
Me too. But I love, and we get to experience a lot of this when we read the short stories on the website. But I love when lore sort of kind of takes an event that we all know very well and kind of fills in like, oh yeah, this wasn't just a place where we go to try to get the Jaina mount before Shadowlands comes out. This is a place where a pretty crazy thing happened, right? The entire fleet was blown up and the Alliance invaded, and a lot of innocent people were probably killed because that was an attack on a major city. And so I was going to ask you, if you rated that, but you already answered that question. Like it's just really cool to like take these moments. I think about other things in the game like that have kind of, you don't really think about it, but if you kind of like dip your head into like, okay, what would that really have been like? Like the king comes in, the king dies, the king for hundreds of years dies, and just I don't want this just to be me kissing your ass, but I really
by all means.
I just really appreciated that. I really appreciated that nuance. I was wondering though, so the Talanji Jaina feud is obviously not finished, and I was wondering to what extent Blizzard gave you guidance on that, of if they wanted you to develop that in any way, or if that was just something that you wanted to put into the book.
Sure. I was given pretty explicit instructions in terms of Talanji blames Jaina's family for what happened. Like, yes, I've had people point out to me like, well, Jaina didn't actually kill. I'm like, I get it, but perception, a huge part of this book is perception. Like, what you perceive creates your reality. So Talanji perceives that Jaina is the face of this siege, right? She is like the head of this siege in her mind. She's the one in a lot of ways that people are like, oh, well, everything that happened at Teldrassil is Sylvanas, when it's like, I think some other people may have been involved in that, right? So like that, but her perception is like, this is who I've chosen to assign blame, maybe because it's easy or because it's straightforward. It's like, okay, I know what I have to do, right? It's this family, it's this person. And so, yeah, I was told, like, we want to explore this. We want to show that sort of like, there's a lot of bitter feelings on Talanji's side for this, and that she sees it as this real like feud where Jaina doesn't even really perceive that, right? Like she's aware she can't like show up in Zandalar and be like, hey, like obviously not, but she's not necessarily aware that like Talanji wants her head on a plate, right? Like I don't think there's like that same like evenness in terms of understanding. So it was explicitly told to me like Talanji blames Jaina for what happened. So that becomes part of the story.
Yeah, and I don't think it's out of the realm of sanity saying that Jaina
makes total sense.
Like in all reality, the most responsible person for even though she didn't kill Rastakhan, she was the leader behind the siege. It was all her thing. She had the opportunity, to try and pull back, and she chose not to. It's that whole like
and there's this extra element which I've talked about on podcasts, which is really hard to write around, is that we don't exist.
Right.
Like our characters don't exist really in the larger lore of the universe, right? Like it's kind of like, it's like implied that there are other acting factors going on.
They're the adventurers. But like, we're the soldiers.
Right. They're sort of like, you're sort of infantry, you're soldiers. So like it gets really murky when you're like, well, Talanji doesn't blame you personally, person in this raid, right? Like she, like she's not going to remember everybody who was there. She's going to remember the leadership that, gave the order. So
clearly she never saw my parses.
Didn't see your trans. Like,
I feel like
trans hog.
I feel like that wouldn't impress her much.
Oh dear, you're probably right.
But yeah, we rated that together, didn't we? That's
when our guild fell apart in that at the beginning of that tier. We started that raid.
Well, and I remember exactly why. It's because all of a sudden I logged in and we were fighting Megatork and I was a horde character and I'm like, oh, this is what fun feels like, and I switched.
Right.
Left the Alliance Guild. Anyway, yeah, I remember all that. But in any case, yeah, she's such a cool character. It's something we kind of alluded to a little bit earlier, and I think it was who was it in the chat? I'm scrolling up. Smurf says asked about said it would really be cool to see Apari's ghost in game or something. We're going to Shadowlands. How likely is it that we will see her again in game? Because we had the Safi and Goblin Man from the Christy Golden novel, Grizz, that actually made it into game somewhere around 8.2, I think. How likely do you think it is that we see Apari and Teo in game?
I have no idea. I have zero idea. I am not part of that decision making. Obviously, I would love it. That would be incredibly cool. I'm all for it.
If you need us all to write emails to Afraziabi or whoever would go to.
I don't know. I mean, I write this novel with full expectation that none of what I did will be referenced ever again, right? Like I'm sort of like, who knows what'll come back, who knows what won't. So yeah, I have no idea. I haven't been told anything. That was never part of the creation of them. So don't expect that like she has some further part to play. Maybe they will make her have a further part to play, but I am not a part of those decisions.
Squid Central in the chat said they put Griffin McElroy in the game. Anything is possible. And as of note, they also have put Madeleine in the game.
Yeah, I was going to say there's someone from the cover of the book that's in the game, which is super cool.
Yeah.
Congrats on your NPC.
Thank you.
Yeah. Did you get to pick? Did they just say this is no?
No, but once I saw it, I was like, no, that makes sense. I like it. It's how I feel on the inside. So
how does that influence your Covenant decision, if I might ask?
I'm actually leveling a classic orc warrior to put her Maldraxxus because I think the aesthetic will be really metal. Yeah. So she will be going Maldraxxus. My night elf druid main will be going Ardenweald, I think. So
cool. For those of you that don't know what we're talking about, the Shadowlands beta, if you go into the what is it called, the Covenant Hall, the base for the Necrolords, there is a character named Madeleine Roux in there. Super cool.
Well, there you go. It is absolutely very cool.
Before we forget,
yeah,
whose decision was it to canonize Zappy Boy?
Oh, yeah.
Not mine. Not mine. I would not have done that, like, if I was not told to, because I would assume,
wrong,
like,
Madeleine.
I would assume, like, don't do that stuff, right? Like, I'm pretty anti-fan service. I'm pretty anti all that stuff. So, yeah, no, that was a like suggestion.
You had said that.
Yeah, it was on your.
You
were
very
on your podcast.
Yeah, that was the only spoiler that we gave.
And I was okay with it because it was Bwansamdi. If it was anyone else, I would have probably fought back against that decision. But because it's him and he likes to break the fourth wall anyway, and he's a god, so he can kind of do whatever he wants. I was okay with it being him. But yeah, if it was like Talanji or someone, I would have probably been like, could we not? So.
Well, when I first that that detail of the book got kind of spoiled for me. Somebody tweeted it, but when I first read it, the person that I read it inaccurately said that it was Thrall, and I was like, really? I'm trying to picture that happening.
No, that's anti Shadows Rising propaganda. Yeah. No, that's not what happens. As a very pro Thrall person, I know better than to have him say something like that. He would maybe repeat it if he had been in hearing and be like, "Huh?"
Zappy boy. Yeah. Zappy boy. Okay, Hannah, will you stop giving away our secrets, please? Hannah is quintessential in the chat, and that's my girlfriend, who hasn't even finished the book yet and shouldn't be listening to this interview yet, but whatever.
Same.
She's going to be mad at me for calling her out. She says I could have. I said that Thrall could have said it. I don't know. I guess he could have. I could have seen it happening too, but I don't know.
I would have fought back against that decision had that been the call, but nope, it wasn't the call, so I didn't have to fight.
No, Bonsomdi's perfect.
No, exactly. It makes a lot of sense that it was Bonsomdi, and I like, and it's just for me because I think I feel a little bit like you do, Madeleine, as far as fan service goes, but maybe not at all. I don't know. I like a little bit of fan service. A little bit. I feel like this was at least a nod enough to fans. And there's other things that were in the book that I wouldn't necessarily call fan service, but it was really nice to know that the author is a fan, if that makes sense.
Like what?
For example, Matthias Shaw talking about he's been in worse situations before. Like this one time he was in, when he tried to run this covert op through a cheese shop. Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, you got to play Classic to know that, or BC at least. Before that was before at least before Cataclysm, you know. Mm-hmm. So stuff like that. There was also acknowledgments of shamans being able to walk on water. It's because it's a spell ability, Yeah,
to me that's just facts, though. That's not fan service, right?
It's not fan service, but I guess what I'm saying is it's something that I think when you're fans of the game, because I think I would say you could read this novel and enjoy it, having never played World of Warcraft before. But those of us that are fans and that have been, and not even just fans of the novel, but these were fans of these tosses back to the game.
Yeah. And
you wouldn't have got it unless it was in the game. Yeah, what would you add?
The familiarity with geography, a lot of your descriptions of locations in Nazmir, for example, right? You're like
the Blood Red Sun.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and that's something when I think of an author like Richard Knack, who I absolutely love his novels and what's that? Sorry,
I does not play the game.
Yeah, he does not.
I think only Christy and I, of the authors they have hired, actually have subscriptions and play. Yeah.
Yeah, I would be surprised if Richard Knack played the game because his books don't sound like. I think it's been a while since I've read one of his books. I guess it's been a while since he's written a Warcraft novel, but he names locations that aren't in the game in his books. And,
really?
Richard.
It's interesting. It's a stylistic thing, right? And I think it's a deliberate choice on Blizzard's part to go more in the direction of these books were great. They're kind of written as almost like they're not part of the game world in a lot of senses and sort of stand outside of it, and they're much more sort of serious fantasy right? And I think and I'm not sure that's the tone of World of Warcraft. So I think there may be a deliberate switch to sort of let's go with something that kind of matches the world a little closer, or it does feel like you could just walk through this book. Every location is there. I promise. I checked. I had all my mains parked everywhere to make sure that I had specific locations in mind. So to me, that's more fun, right? Because if I'm reading a book like that, I'm like, oh, I know where that is. It's just this sort of immediate connection to it. And to me, that's sort of rewarding the fans in a way of you play this, this world, so let's do it in places that and have been to, because then it feels really consistent that you would go back to this same place. So
I got a question for you from Smurfin in the chat that asks, in one interview you mentioned that one of the characters in the book is a tribute to a WoW player that passed away. Could you specify what character that is, or would you prefer to keep it unsaid?
I don't have the family's permission.
Okay.
So I'd prefer not to say.
Okay.
I can
didn't know
ask.
that. That's interesting.
I'm still in touch with them, so I can ask, and I can tweet it to you guys or something. But yeah, no, it was. I was just on the Reddit the subreddit one day, and someone had a really moving post about their family member who died, and that was like the way they had bonded together. And I reached out to them privately and was like, "Hey, would you be cool with me naming this character after your family member as a tribute and making it the right race and class and everything?" So.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. I love how, I mean, tip of the hat to you for that kindness, but just the fact that Blizzard does those sorts of things as well. Like, you know, from Robin Williams to, you know, there's a kid that's has a quest now that was a Make-A-Wish, you know.
Yeah, there's little tributes all over. A lot of the gravestones that you
everywhere.
find in different locations. Yeah.
Well, and even to the community, just with Reckful passing away recently, the WoW streamer. If you guys haven't heard about that, just the tributes to him in game, led by the community, that were really moving and impactful. It's just it's nice little happy things like that make even the toughest stuff that we deal with in the gaming community, in the World of Warcraft community, you know, it's nice to see those kindnesses and those things happen. So, but that's really cool. I didn't know that that was a thing, but that's awesome.
Yeah, and it was cool because when I said it, they were like, "Okay, I don't believe you." I was like, "Hang on, I will prove it to you." I was like, "Wait for it." Okay, wait for 6 months,
and then give me a few months. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they reached back out and they're like, "Holy shit, you son of a bitch, you really did it." There it is. I mean, they said it much nicer. They sent me a very heartwarming message. They did not share. But yeah, they were sort of like, "Oh, okay, yeah, you did do that." So
that's great. Another quick question we had. So in the story, I'm never going to say his name right. Bwansamdi. Bob Salami. No. Bwansamdi has been keeping souls from going to the maw, right? He's trying to save these souls. How? It's my question. Like, not only how, but like where. It's an interesting thing for me because I know like all the like the story for Shadowlands is everybody's going to the maw, they're getting all the stuff. So these souls that Bwansamdi is saving, where is he being able to take them? And because I'm assuming he's using death magic, Bwansamdi Loa, Death Loa magic.
TM,
yeah, TLDR. Yeah. But yeah, what can you describe a little bit, at least from your mind, from a creative? Because it wasn't it makes sense to me logically. Like, oh, he's the Loa of Death, he can save souls. But if we're talking about this like sorting hat kind of thing in Shadowlands, where they're all going somewhere. I think Shoeboots or Jared One was saying maybe they were being put to whatever Bwansamdi's pocket realm was, which they thought maybe
that was
other
just speculation.
Or, yeah, kind of ideas.
I've started to quest through Ardenweld, and there's talk of Bwansamdi having this place called the Other Side, and I believe it's even mentioned in the book. Mm-hmm. But I actually haven't run that dungeon, and I haven't played the story in the beta to see more about it. So I was wondering if that might be where he's sending souls.
So in your mind, these souls,
that's a thing I can't say.
So that's all right. But
fair.
In my mind, it's a fanny pack with skulls on it, and that's where they're going.
Does he wear it on the front or the back?
On the side, like jaunty.
Okay.
Based on your answer, can I infer that we will learn the answer to that soon enough?
I think so. I haven't been to that part of the beta. I finally got in, but I haven't seen that part. So
how have you not been in since day one?
I don't know.
they're like, no, she's got to finish the novel. We can't let her play the beta. She's got to.
Oh, it was done ages ago.
I know.
Done ages ago. I don't know like to what degree it's explicitly stated, but I think there may be some information on that. Yeah.
Okay.
Have you? When you were on our show the first time and talking about there were certain parts of this book that you were kind of given information that you need to know, but never, very rarely anything more than what you need to know. I'm assuming this is one of those times. Like,
It was suggested to me, and like I think I know the answer, but yeah, this was one of those things where it was like, you don't really need to understand this, you just need to say it this way, right? But in the explanation I was given, I can make some inferences. Yeah.
Go ahead. I was going to say, if unless we're moving on to a different subject, let's maybe not try to push her to disclose her NDA.
I'm
okay. Cool. Moving on.
I have no desire to try and trick
you
into saying. Yeah.
I know. Okay. I just, we might have a Mark Ruffalo on our hands. Yeah. I don't, we just got to be careful.
No, I was just wondering about, so there's the scene where, Zakan is heading towards the Maw, and and I'm like, oh my God, did Zakan die? And I guess he sort of did, but then he got undied. Was that also a suggestion? Was that your creative choice for that to happen, or did they want to? I guess I'm just trying to decipher if Blizzard wanted us to get a taste of the Maw in this book, or if that was just your choice.
No, that was intentional. I mean, it's hard because this is the Shadowlands prequel book, but not much of it takes place in the Shadowlands, right? So we did want to have places that kind of whet your appetite for like, no, you might see this, and this is going to, like, these are things you can expect to know more about and see and experience for yourself. And now having done the beta, knowing like, exactly what happens once you sort of get into the story, it is definitely intentional that you get a taste of it.
Awesome. There's so many other questions that we could, I'm sure, come up with, and I'm sure we will come up with more by the end of the show. And feel free, chat room, if you guys come up with something, and go ahead and to type it in the chat, and we'll do our best to get to those. I did want to, though, since this is our book club discussion analysis thing, kind of shift into talking a little bit about theme and story and character and all those sorts of things with this story. So everybody put your academic hats on, because Professor Shark is coming out.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know. I get to teach again. It's been too long. But if you guys had listened to us for a while, remember I like to look at kind of break things down. Aristotle wrote about theater analysis and these kind of 6 basic tenets of theater, but I like to look at the first 3 where we're talking about plot, character, and thought or theme, and just kind of breaking those things down. Plot being what happens in the story, character being who the story is about, like who's telling the story, and the theme being why the story is being told, right? What the audience is intended to be receiving. And that's kind of a special one because a lot of times, especially in more modern works, sometimes the audience can be intended to receive many things or different things, or it might depend on the audience member. I talked to a playwright once. I'm like, so what is this play about? And she goes, I don't know. That's up to you, But anyway, so I want to kind of break some of this stuff down and talk about it. And we have Madeleine here to be an awesome resource for us and tell us whether we're way off way off or not. And as a playwright myself, I've written plays and had people analyze them and talk to me about it. And I'm like, I didn't even think that, but you're absolutely right. Like, now that I'm looking back at it, this is about my childhood and how my mommy didn't love me enough or something. But anyway, I'm sorry, I'm going way off topic. I want to talk a little bit about that. And I like to look at, as far as from a character analysis perspective, like I kind of believe that every story has one main protagonist and one main antagonist. That sort of helps us figure out what the theme of the story is, because we more closely analyze their action in the story. Shoeboots and Jared and chat room, what do you guys think? Who do you guys think the main protagonist and the main antagonist is?
Well, I mean, that's easy for me. The protagonist would be Talanji and the antagonist would be Apari.
That's kind of how I saw it too. How do you feel, Shoeboots?
That's for sure.
Yeah, and we say that not because they're the most important characters, but because they are they're the ones that move the action of the story, right? This story is, you ask yourself the question, what is the story about? This story is about Talanji's struggle, so it's really easy to see her kind of as the protagonist.
And I guess to me, I mean, when I think about it, there's a lot of other stories, which I would imagine would have been one of the larger challenges of writing a book like this. But we visit Turalyon and Illyria, and we visit Anduin, and we visit Jaina.
A lot of side stories.
And we visit the Horde, and there's, Zakan's story. But it seems like all of those elements are in support of the larger story of the plot against Talanji by Apari and her group.
Yeah. So that being said, what do you guys in chat room, feel free to chime in on this, but what do you guys think that, what was the main thematic elements? What is Talanji's story? Because I remember talking to you guys pre-show, and I described this novel as a struggle for me, and not in a negative way in any way. I thought the book was wonderful, but it was a struggle in the sense that, if you look at Before the Storm, there was so many climactic things, I feel like, that happened in that story that allowed it to be a memorable experience because it felt big. And there were some definitely big events in this story, but it felt more like a wrestling match instead of a cannon shot, if that makes any sense to you guys out there. I don't know. What are you making fun of me for?
That doesn't make any sense to me.
It doesn't make any sense at all?
Metaphor, but
yeah, maybe it's just a metaphor. And I didn't want to say, when I wanted to try to clarify when I say this story was a struggle to me, it wasn't that it was difficult to read. It was, or that I didn't enjoy it. It was like I said, it was
like it.
No, I do like it very much.
It's not a prerequisite for talking to me.
I'd tell you if I didn't like it. I really enjoyed the story, okay. But like I said, it felt more. This is the director in me in theater, but whenever we analyze, we always talk about we try to create a metaphor for the story. And this story, I would say, felt like it was a wrestling match. It was struggle. It was, you're in the mud and you're struggling. Both the main character, or the protagonist and antagonist, physically were debilitated throughout the entire story, right? Their health continued to worsen. Constant references to pain and struggle. And it wasn't like this wasn't something that happened quick and explosive, like a gunshot or a cannon blast, which is what I felt like, for example, Sylvanas taking out all of the Forsaken in Arathi Highlands back in Before the Storm and killing Kalia and all that stuff. Like that for me was a cannon blast. I wasn't expecting it. It just kind of led to that moment and then boom. Where this story, it was a constant gripping and griping. And I'm wondering if that doesn't help us. It reminded me a lot of the kind of stuff that I feel like I experience every day. In a sense of multiple people looking at different sides of different stories and nobody being right and everybody just being frustrated and angry with each other.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I'm not looking at chat and I don't know what people are saying, but sure. I mean, for me, like I said earlier, perception is such a huge part of this book in terms of who knows what, who thinks what, how do you see which event. And I could think you could also make the argument that the main villain of this book is Sylvanas, and the protagonist is either Bwonsamdi or literally everybody else.
Sure.
So, because even though she's not on screen, everyone is sort of fighting back against things that she's put into place or problems that she started or trying to pick up the pieces of things that she did. So, and that might be, it's kind of hard. I think it kind of pushes back against analysis in a lot of ways because there are so many little mini stories inside of it. Right. You almost have to break them down within the book, like the Turalyon and Illyria stuff, and then what Thrall's up to, and then, what Tyrande and the Night Elves are up to. It's all there's all these sort of sub stories that are taking place. So,
and I feel
does sort of.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no, you're fine. I was done.
I was going to say, I feel like that being said, as far as analyzing theme in the story, for me, one thing that was relevant to every story was this concept of struggle, right? Apari is in the middle of a struggle, hard, for her identity, for her nation, for, you know, she's the leader of the rebels. That, you know, in her head, it's, you know, Star Wars rebels, you know, and Talanji's Darth Vader, right? She's in the middle of that struggle. Talanji's in the middle of a struggle of how is she going to regain the trust of her people who are all mad at her for joining the Horde? How is, you know, Matthias, I feel like, is in his own struggle, at least with being, like, almost, I guess, finding who he is. He constantly references, like, working too much and not, and finding this freedom and refuge in Flynn. Tyrande is in a huge struggle with identity. She consistently referred to herself as the Night Warrior, especially in the final scenes of the book. Who was it? Maev kept saying, "But you're not. You're a priestess of Elune. You're Tyrande and a leader of your people. You're not just the Night Warrior." So, like, identity and struggle, I think, really came out to play front and center in this novel. What do you guys think?
I would add, Flynn might have an alcohol problem.
Right, Flynn.
He's struggling against some more basic demons, perhaps.
Maybe.
Well, I mean, when we're introduced to the character, he is very, very, very soused.
It's my favorite. It's my favorite quest. Is the one where I don't know how, because there was a bug in that quest when I was doing it.
For like 40 minutes.
Well, he kept doing that, and then he would despawn for me, and I'd have to start the quest again, and I got so frustrated with him.
Somebody blacked out.
I know. I remember I had to do that quest at least 2 times on my main, because by the time I got to that quest, there was a bug there. But anyway, still was a perfect way to introduce him to the story of him going in circles and you having to kill all this trash to keep him alive. But anyway, but yeah, so if struggle and identity is somewhere along, this novel is obviously speaking to that. What do you think it's saying? Bootsy, Jared, chat room.
Well, Madeleine's right there. We could just ask her.
Well, you could, but that's cheating.
that's not nearly as fun.
What we're going to do is pose our ideas and then allow Madeleine to comment on them.
Okay. I think, for me personally, I think something that the book is trying to say is that it's better sometimes to nurture an open mind, to look at an event's past and to try and see not necessarily the other side of the story, but just from a different perspective, because there's always something that you're going to miss. There's too much going on. And that's true in the book, as true as it is in real life. Like, there's always so many things going on. It's impossible for one person to be omnipotent and know the best thing to do and know how to handle every situation. So that's what I feel the book is really trying to get across.
So rephrase that again so I can make sure I heard it right.
What?
The book is really trying to get across
that it's good to keep an open mind.
Okay. So open-mindedness as far as the struggle and the identity is concerned, like, okay. Yes. What about you? What about you, Shoeboots? What do you think this is saying?
Well, I'll tell you this. One thing that I really identified with in the book is how much terribleness can happen when you don't consider the perceptions of others.
Yeah.
And that is something that I see so much in real life. I'm a very politically oriented person in my life, and I'm a raging liberal or whatever. But like, there's so much of just people just not taking a moment to consider what this is like through the eyes of other people. And certainly, like, I see a lot of that here. It was interesting that Thrall to me was sort of a voice of reason in the book, that he actually was considering, like he considered what is this like Tyrande, what must this be like for Tyrande right now, and what must this be like for Talanji right now, the fact that there's a truce with I just really appreciated having that I don't know if I'd call him an audience rep, but for my experience, that's what I'd call him, because that's
Moral
something that's
center.
going. Yeah, the moral center, and just like
the morally gray center. And we just named the podcast.
Talanji.
There's already a morally gray podcast.
I know.
I've been on it.
So have a couple of these guys.
Shout out to Jin.
Yeah.
Just like Talanji had so much pride in the beginning, and so much probably fear of being judged as a new ruler, and she didn't really have much time for the Horde perspective of peace. She certainly didn't have much time for Jaina's perspective of the Horde. But then in the end, she sort of gets an appreciation for Apari's perspective. I feel like she like has this kind of moment where she thinks about, oh, I should have helped her. I wish I could have helped her. Kind of with that like almost unsolvable problem of like, should I have helped her or should I have went and helped my father? And she'll have to probably carry that unanswerable question with her for the rest of her life. But I just like that that was kind of like a moment of growth for her. And, in the resolution of the book, she starts to think, okay, she starts to remember all the reasons why she joined the Horde in the first place. And she's not letting the Jaina thing go. She's not happy about that, but she seems to be considering other things than just her own perspective, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's a huge theme that takes place in the story. And I like to think about so we focus on these main characters and these main like I said, there's many more stories than just Talanji and Apari's story, but I feel like that was kind of the central, at least if you call that the main quest of the novel, with these other relevant side quests that went along to help supporting stories. At least the way I look at it. I could be totally wrong and everybody can disagree with me. But one thing I like to look at is seeing that journey. Talanji believes something to be true at the beginning of the story, learns things about that thing throughout the story, and then believes something different to be true by the end. And I think that kind of helps figure out a key of a lesson that we're supposed to learn as an audience. So the things that I feel like she learns, and you guys can try to help me out with this in the chat, I feel like she learns to put trust in people that she doesn't have. For example, the Horde specifically, right? That was kind of a big, doggo.
Someone walked by, I think,
okay.
the door. Hey,
that's good. They're agreeing with me, obviously. But yeah, she learns to put. It has to do with trust. It has to do with maybe even just to allow people to help her in her struggle, because I feel like the struggle is big. That's one thing that, and conversely, that's something that Apari absolutely refused. People continually throughout the book offered to help her with her leg. They said, we can have that healer come and fix your leg. We can have that Volpera amputate your leg and save your life. We can help you. Which
is an interesting scene to think about.
Help. Yeah. I guess. But we could help.
hands for surgery.
Yeah, she consistently refused help. And at the beginning of the play, I'm sorry, I'm going back to Theaterland. At the beginning of the novel, Talanji's the same way. The Horde offers her assistance, and she's only willing to accept it conditionally if they agree to do something that they absolutely aren't going to agree to do, which is to go after Jaina Proudmoore. So she refuses to allow them to help her in her struggle. There's an attempted assassination of her in Orgrimmar. And the Horde's like, no, this is a Horde problem. And she's like, no, it's a Zandalari problem. Peace. And refuses. So I feel like that is definitely something, another theme that this story is kind of helping us learn is like when we're in those moments of struggle, when we're in that identity crisis, that's a theme that we see all of these people. Apari, trusted thrall in the Horde near the end, and that's helping her with her crisis and her struggle.
Talanji.
Talanji, thank you. I'm sorry. Scott Johnson
A lot of
all
names
over the place.
Keep track of it.
I know. There was Matthias in his struggle. He's helped by Flynn Fairwind, you know, with Tyrande and her struggle. She's assisted by Maiev, and I cannot remember the name of the other.
Chandris, right?
Chandris, that was with her. Maiev and Chandris.
Yeah.
That continued to be with her in that struggle. I don't know. And maybe I'm taking this a little bit too personally, because that's literally what my job has been for the past year, and working with guys that are in the therapeutic boarding school that I was working with. And it's like, we're not there to force them to stop struggling. You know, we're not there to smack cigarettes out of their hand and scream at them for doing drugs or drinking alcohol. We're there to help them in their struggle. For people to be able to complain about how crappy their life is, and for us to be able to go, you know what, you're right. That sounds horrible. It makes sense that you feel that way. I'm here to help. What can I do? Just sit and listen. You want to go play Sega? You know, you want to go. And I feel like that's something that I feel like this book is kind of supporting. It's like, what is helping these people in their struggle is all of these other people. So it's almost
I think
this
the
like,
horror council slots nicely into that analysis as well.
Yeah, and that's something I wanted to bring up too, and I wanted to give you a chance to comment and to kind of to help us a little bit with at least what your thoughts were as far as telling the story. But
yeah, how do we do?
Yeah, well, let's real quick. I wanted to say
the take help when it's offered to you is 100% something that is intentionally woven throughout the book many times.
Professor Sharku got it. You guys are welcome. Anyway,
I think there's sort of two biggish themes. Like, that's one of them that one half of the cast is exploring, and the other half of the cast, we haven't really talked about Anduin yet, but the other, and I actually think this also applies to many people that are also on the take help when it's offered to you side, but like actually learning what your inner voice is, and not just listening to other opinions constantly. Like, obviously taking them into account, but learning like, wait, but like, what is my actual, like, what do I think? Like, your own instinct is not necessarily constructed of other people's perceptions. It should be your own. It should be, something that really like is innate to you and something that you really listen to when the chips are down. And I think the other half of the cast and some of the helper quests or helper casts as well are on that journey too. But for me, Anduin has always been this character that seems really kind of constantly advised and constantly sort of told what to do, and feels like, yeah, he's the king, but he's a kid, right? And like, he doesn't really know, like, he might say, this is what we're going to do, but there's always like Gen or Jaina or Turalyon or whoever, there's always someone kind of like there to tell him what to do. And I think when we see him punch Wrathion, I think that's really, to me, was a really meaningful moment of showing like something's changing here. Like, something in him is evolving, where he's like being more instinctive. He's being more kind of gut level with his decision making. And so to me, I wanted to sort of carry that thread through. And obviously Jarek is like a pretty symbolic representation of this, but of like, well, what's your inner life actually telling you? Instead of like, well, okay, just do whatever Gen said because you trust him and you like him. Like, you can't do that forever, right? He could die, or or he could be wrong. He could be rash. He could be incorrect. So I think, and Matthias, I think, also is on that journey of like, what do I really want? like this job is my life, and that has served me up until now, but I don't think that's serving me the best anymore. So like, what do I actually want? Who should I actually listen to? Like, what is my inner voice actually telling me?
Right.
And I think with Talanji too, because by the end she realizes hey, this pact can work for me if I make it work the way I want it to, right? Like kind of taking control back of that and realizing I don't want to get rid of this pact. I want to make it fair, and I want to change it and have it on my own terms and be a consenting party of it and that kind of thing. So, yeah, that was something that I was interested in exploring because a lot of, her and Anduin are so young, and kind of having these rulers be on this journey of like, okay, I can't just listen to my advisors and do whatever they say forever. At a certain point, like, I have to listen to myself. And I think the other side of that lesson is Nathanos, who does everything he's told always and thinks it's going to get him what he wants, and it doesn't. So,
Right.
He's sort of the like womp womp of this lesson of like, if you just do what someone tells you all the time, thinking it's going to get you what you want, probably not the best choice.
Yeah.
Because then when that person's gone or they abandon you, what do you have left?
It's interesting that he's that opposite extreme, like, because when you talk about like with the struggle and the needing to rely on others kind of aspect, we would automatically go to this idea of, well, that means doing it alone is no good, right? Like Apari did alone, so that's no good.
Yeah.
But seeing the opposite extreme,
I don't see like listening to your inner voices as being alone. It's like, okay, I've taken in, like you were, like Jared was saying, actually, like, okay, I've had an open mind. I've taken in everything. I'm thinking about what other people are experiencing. I'm thinking about my past and their past and what history tells us. Mm-hmm. Okay, now I'm ready to like actually go quiet though and like listen to what I want and what I think is right, right? Whereas like, and that's fine because you do at the end of the day, like you're the king, you do have to be a little self-reliant. Like it's community and then down to the individual. But if it's Nathanos, it's just what Sylvanas said.
He's that other extreme. There is no concept of self for him. There is no Nathanos. Nathanos is a servant of the queen, and that's all he is.
And you'll notice too, kind of like the relationship with Syrah, the relationship with Apari, the relationship with the other Dark Rangers. There's not a lot of warmth there. There's not a lot of like, we're all in this together. This is a community. We're friends. He just sort of barks at them and they do what he says. So again, it's sort of creating this like idea of, if this is how you treat community, if this is how you treat yourself, like probably not the best.
Yeah. And being a theater nerd, and I know that you said you studied theater in undergrad.
Yeah, it was my second degree.
Right. I really enjoyed, I don't know if this was purposeful or not, but I enjoyed, there was some Shakespearean allusions in the book. For example, Anduin donning the disguise and going to the pub was very Henry V for me. You know what I'm referencing in Henry V? Yeah. Is there's that, and then there's also like just the Brutus Caesar kind of relationship between Talanji and Apari, them being close friends, and then one feeling betrayed by the other and therefore betraying the other. I don't know. I just noticed a lot of really cool things. I wanted to bring that up when you started talking about Anduin, especially like that moment. I was like, "Oh, Henry V moment." It's really
that's an accurate reading of that for sure. And I think it's funny because Warcraft is such a giant kind of soap opera, in that I think it lends itself well to some of those sort of like cyclical storytelling and kind of operatic references, right? Because everything's really big and over the top, and the stakes are always super, super high. So I think it can stand up to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and Henry V, which for those of you that might not know, just real briefly, King Henry. This is the battle before they fight the French.
I'm not past Henry III.
Spoilers. So yeah. Okay, that's good. Henry IV is fine. Paul Stead's my favorite. But you've got Henry V, who is the king, the boy king, right? Very Anduin-esque. It's Anduin meets George Washington, I think, for England. But he's on the dawn of war, and this is right before his big, once more into the breach, dear friends, once more, right? This big, huge, bombastic speech of trying, and this giant war that he's trying to do, and he disguises himself and goes amongst his troops, and it's a true growing moment for him because he allows himself to hear his troops speak about the king, without knowing they were in the presence of the king, right? It's this humbling thing that was a real iconic thing for this particular story that is, brought about. And Madeleine does a perfect job, perfect. That's such a terrible word to use, but an amazing job of kind of highlighting like this powerful moment of a true leader, a good, humble leader who, from Anduin's perspective, he felt like he just needed to not be the king for a minute and just wanted to escape from it. But at the same time, the reason he can't truly escape from it is because he's seeing these people that are going to fight and die for him, and it affects him, right? Shows that humanity that he has, that he's not like Sylvanas, who's just throwing her soldiers to their deaths without even thinking about it. I don't know. It was really, really cool movement, but I wanted to kind of explain that really quick. I got a couple other questions before we get out of here and let the guys ask a few more as well.
I've got about 15 minutes, so
that's what I was thinking. I wanted to make sure we got it done.
Sure, I don't want to. Yeah.
These a couple of them real quick. One of them was just a comment. I think Noble Knight wanted to comment that said, we talked about it earlier, the part where the Horde Council members met with the Night Elves gave her chills, and she would love to see that in game. I totally agree. And we talked about that a little bit. That was such a cool moment.
I love getting.
Just so intense.
Tyrande, I'm a happy little clam. So.
Oh yeah, and I'm sitting there like, what's he gonna say? What was he supposed to bring? What was owed?
That was the first time I genuinely held my breath reading a book since I think Deathly Hallows. I know.
I'm the one over here screaming, Jaina kills Thrall back a couple of years ago, and now I'm like, Tyrande kills Thrall. It was frightening. Thrall doesn't die.
Stop trying to kill Thrall. Stop.
I know. He's got to die at some point. Everyone's got to go, and I want his to be like momentous.
No, I know.
So this is another question from Hannah. Asks, I really would like to know what other games Madeleine plays / thinks has really good stories and lore. So what, other than Warcraft, what are your go-to story games?
I feel like this is going to be just the hot list that everybody would give, but I'm a big Dragon Age nerd. I love their storytelling.
It's good.
I think it's one of the few universes that takes a magic system and actually takes it to its logical extreme of what would happen if magic existed in a world. Not trying to shade the Elder Scrolls, but I have some issues with their magic systems. I like. It just doesn't make any sense. But no, I love that that's like kind of where they started the building of like, well, if you really could set someone on fire with your mind, how would that play out in a fantasy setting? So I like that a lot. I would also say a game I really love that is kind of like lesser known is A Plague Tale. It came out last year, I think. It's fabulous, incredible world building, incredible storytelling. You can beat it in about 8 hours, so it's like a one and done. I think Horizon Zero Dawn does incredible environmental storytelling and sort of extrapolation of what would happen after a specific kind of disaster on our world. So I'm a big fan of that. Would love to write books for that universe. That would be so cool. Yeah. Techno dinosaurs, please. Let's see. I'm a big Star Wars person, so I love the KOTOR games. I think they do a great job sort of making it more mature and making it more, I don't know. I like that they take a more gray view of the universe. You don't get a lot of like gray Jedi stuff in the movies, but I really love that, especially in 2. That's like a huge part of it.
Revan for life.
Yes, I have Revan tattooed on my body right here.
Awesome.
So yeah, those would be that's my short list. Obviously there's a lot more, but
you missed Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9, but that's okay. I'll forgive you.
I'm not a big Final Fantasy person. I know that's controversial, but
I understand it. I can understand.
It's funny you said that because to me it's 4 and 6. Those are the two.
Yeah.
I've played them. I don't know. To me, the storytelling is not as. They're such humongous games.
Yeah.
I have a hard time digesting them sometimes.
I'm wondering if it was just my 10-year-old brain playing it and being like, "Oh my god." I think
No,
that's what
I
it was.
totally get it. Yeah.
But anyway, even still, it's straight up McDonald's to me. I'm loving it. You guys got it? I'm loving it. All right.
Yeah, because
Couple
the song.
Yeah, we gotta
Right.
get Madeline out of here, and me out of here. I need to go to bed. So Alejandro's in the chat asks, the decision not to kill Syrah, was that Blizzard's call, or was that a decision that you, Madeline, made? And
that would not be in my hands.
yeah,
I'm flattered you think I would get to make that decision.
It's just she wants to know who decided that keeping her alive was mercy. That's an interesting way to phrase that. Who decided that keeping her alive was mercy?
I think for me, that moment is less about Syrah and much more about Tyrande. She absolutely goes there expecting to annihilate her. Whether or not thinking it's mercy or not, I think you could debate it either way. But I think the fact that she doesn't kill her is what really matters, because I think it signals that perhaps there's sort of gears are turning in her head. Perhaps she's not satisfied just being the Night Warrior or just being this kind of avatar of revenge. So, yeah, I think it's hard, because I think too, like, I would love to see a journey back for Syrah, and I think it would be interesting, because I've said this other places, but like, I would love to see more storytelling for characters like Syrah or Sylvanas or Nathanos, of like, how do you come back from that? Like, can you come back from it? I would have loved to see like Kylo Ren's redemption in the long scale, right? Like, what would you have to do? There are certain people who would never forgive you, right? But would certain people forgive you? What would it take? Like, I think those questions are much more compelling because they're much harder to answer. So I would be curious to see. And my hope, I don't know. I do not know what Syrah's ultimate fate is, nor do I know what Tyrande's ultimate fate is. But I would love to see something like that for Syrah, where it's like, okay, what would it take for the Night Elves to sort of accept her again? What would it take to sort of have this redemption?
That's my hope, is that there's some sort of something to where she can regain her, because that's always the struggle I had with her character anyway, is like, she just immediately like, oh yep, now I'm undead and now I'm the servant of the Banshee Queen. Like, how much where at what point can she regain her autonomy, the same way that Sylvanas did from Arthas? You know, like, where is that going to happen? So I'm really interested in her story, but yeah, it is interesting that I think the way that Ali phrased it is this idea of like, wouldn't death have been the true mercy? You know, from what we understand about undeath. Yeah,
I think you can read Syrah's performance in that moment one of two ways. Either she's lying to try to get mercy, or she's trying to goad Tyrande into killing her.
Right. Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff, and I feel like even Syrah herself there's part of her that's like, yeah, just I wish for a clean death. But at the same time, she already doesn't get that because she was already raised as undead. But yeah, there's also, it's an interesting concept. I think we're going to see. I have faith that story is not finished being told from Blizzard. All right, you guys, we got about 5 or so more minutes. Any last minute questions from Shoe Boots or Jared?
I just wanted to, I didn't want to say this off the beginning before we talk about your book, but I just wanted to express to you that I'm so thankful that you wrote this. I really enjoyed reading it. Not just because it was great to have a new voice telling a Warcraft story, but because I just really enjoyed your writing style, and I'm excited to look into the rest of your catalog and see some other stuff from you. So thank you.
Yeah,
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm excited to read the novel you write before 11.0. So
I would love to go back. I would love to come back. I've made it very clear that if they want me for anything, they got me.
You're going to have to, and they're going to have to give you some big characters to kill. Jared, what about you?
What was Jaina doing in Goldshire? Do you know?
Wait, what happens in Goldshire stays in Goldshire. Jared.
Yeah, Jared, why?
That's interesting, actually, because so I think because she's older and wiser and has, kind of had longer time to reflect on things. She isn't afraid to go among the people as herself and get a drink and see it with her own eyes and absorb the questions and, have people stare at her. And she's much more self-actualized in that way, where she's sort of like, nope, this is who I am. They all know who I am. They know my past. I'm out in the open. If someone wants to come yell at me, they can do that. Like I've accepted who I am. And so I'll go out among the people and I'll get my beer or wine or whatever. And I'll sit there and I'll drink it, and maybe I'll make a friend, or maybe I'll just be here by myself and listen to the music. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of show a different side of it, where like Anduin's doing this all like clandestine and he's so worried about it. He doesn't want to be recognized. And she's kind of just like, oh, here I am. Like if
that was like his comment to her of just like, well, at least you don't have to hide your face. Like I was like, that's interesting.
You
just like I just don't see how. Like in my mind, I was just thinking that her character would try to remain detached from that. So like seeing her in an inn just floored me. I was just like, wow, wow! I had no idea she would even go there.
Kind of stuff I wanted to do a lot in this book is sort of be like, well, what are these characters like and outside of these sort of big cardboard cutouts that are super epic and never are out amongst the rabble? Like, to me, that's so cold, right? To sort of assume that like they just never interact with like the little minor characters that would populate the inn. Like, some of them definitely wouldn't, right? Some of them would not do that. But like, to me, I think it's more interesting if some of them are like, they have this outside life of what we see of them. They have a day off, or they have a night where they can like sneak out for a quick beer or whatever. And that to me just makes them more human and more interesting than if they're constantly behind the gates, like never right. interacting with us common folk. Yeah. So.
I don't know if anyone else experienced this reading that part, but when the anticipation was sort of building of like, who does he spot across the room? I thought it was going to be Aragorn for sure. Like Anduin started to look like Elijah Wood in my mind as I was reading.
That's fan fiction for sure. That would be hilarious.
Chat room, you guys are nuts. I totally forgot what I was going to say. Oh, I was going to say, like, my BlizzCon analogy, I feel like, for Jaina and Anduin is almost like, if you guys have ever been to BlizzCon, you probably know what I'm talking about. But Taryn Gregory is the Jaina character. Like, you're always going to see Taryn having drinks with everybody. Where Ian's more of the Anduin, where he only makes his public appearances when he needs to.
Or maybe Metzen is, because he apparently has been in disguise.
Well, no, did I tell you what I was standing to talk to Christy the last BlizzCon, and I walk up and I turn around and it's literally Metzen in sunglasses with his kids, and he wanted to get Christy and the voice actors autographs. And I'm like standing right next to Chris Metzen going like, and that was when we just first started the show. And I'm like, oh my God, having him as a guest would be so good. But I didn't talk to him because I knew he was very obviously trying to avoid people.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, all that being said, yeah, it's funny. It does sort of ring a bell in that way to me. But yeah, all right. We got to get out of here. We got to do it. That's going to be it. Thank you guys so much. I'm really sorry if we didn't get to your questions. Like Madeleine was saying, she's pretty much been on every World of Warcraft related podcast, interview, YouTube. She's everywhere.
If you would like to talk to Madeleine, just start a podcast. And,
exactly. At this point, I don't
even have to email me. I'll just be there one day.
I don't know how she's doing it. Yeah, send her don't even have a podcast yet. Just like, hey, I'm starting a podcast. I don't know. No, and
I have two more, and then I'm done. I have one on Friday and one on Saturday.
Well, as a content creator and just a member of the community, it's just so nice that you have been so willing to give up so much of your time to be on as many shows and podcasts and YouTubes and interviews as you have. And it's just been so cool to get so much information behind the creative process of the story that we love and the game that we love. So thank you sincerely from the bottom of my heart as the setback community representative in that comment. But yeah.
No, it's my pleasure. It's been really fun. So.
Yeah, thanks so much. Azadin says, so your schedule's basically free after the next couple episodes.
Oh, no!
All right.
Said that. No, super busy. Totally booked. Sorry.
Yeah. So let's get out of here. Thank you guys. Chat room, you guys are absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. You can check us out if you would like to on setbackpodcast.com. That is setbackpodcast.com. You can find our personal Twitch streams, our Twitters, our everything you need to know is on there. Join our Discord. We have a Discord link. You can join our Discord server excuse me, and chat with the hosts and other people. You can get in 3 a.m. arguments about covenants with me if you want to. It's ask Azadin about it. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, there's all that information, setbackpodcast.com. Check that out. You can also support the show yourself with your own hard-earned dollars, rubies even, pounds, British pounds, euros, all sorts of things, yen. But you can go to patreon.com/setbackpodcast, donate to our Patreon, and you will have our eternal love and gratitude. We actually have a new patron to announce this week that we want to honor. Don't we, Jared?
We do. Lindsay McMahon.
Lindsay McMahon. Madeleine, as a sort of a tradition on our show, we make fun of people's names when they join our Patreon. I don't really know why we did that, except for I'm a jerk, and I just started doing that. So you can join us in finding. I don't know.
No.
Lindsay McMahon is kind of a super basic name, though.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
I grew up watching wrestling, so I think Vince McMahon.
I'm thinking, if she's related to Vince McMahon, but if she, how much was her Patreon donation? And maybe that would be we'd be able to figure out if.
I don't think we can legally disclose that.
There's no legal.
Cheap anyway.
We're not a 501c3.
It may or may not be $400 a month. Try to top it, people.
400,000 million. But yeah, and I think it's pronounced McMahon.
McMahon.
Yeah, Lindsay.
That's probably
I tried
not
to
true.
get the H in there in my pronunciation.
Lindsay McMahon. So there we go. Thank you, Lindsay. Miss McMahon, we really appreciate your donation. If you want us to make fun of your name in a really stupid way, for no reason whatsoever after you've given us money, please check out our Patreon at patreon.com/setbackpodcast. We couldn't do the show without you. Genuinely, from the bottom of our hearts, we really appreciate all of our patrons. Thank you so much for paying for this show so I don't have to. But that's going to be it. I think you can also check out 5-star review stuff on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, all of your podcastries. If you can shoot us a 5-star review, that super helps us. We'd love to shout you guys out that do that. We'd really appreciate that. Apparently, I'm going to have to say this because everyone has been memeing this. So instead of Bootsy Gotta Poop, I'm going to close the show out in a different way. Until next time, everybody, Covenant should be permanent.
Covenant should be permanent?
That's the closer.
Covenant.
You got to say it.
Well, now we have to have a 2-hour discussion about this.
Just say it and we can end the show.
I don't think I can legally say that. I think I'll probably get in trouble.
Shoe Boots, you have to say it.
Covenant's gotta poop. All right.
All right, that's it. I'm not going to play the